Today's webinar is on the introduction to Prioritization, and it's a crash course into the software itself. And what I'm hoping to do is help you get started and learn as much as you can in as short of a period as possible. So the first thing I want to start with is why Prioritization? Why are you here? And what are the challenges that I've seen over and over again? And really, the three recurring themes that I see with our customers is one, you're overwhelmed with personal tasks, meetings, and emails. Two, you don't know what your team priorities are and you wish you did. And then three, you feel like your organization is not always aligned on what's most important and urgent. And the reality is, all of us face these challenges in different ways. For example, myself, I have so many emails, I have so many meetings and so many tasks. It's very, very difficult to be on top of it. And I just can't flag my emails. That's just not sufficient. I can't just leave them as unread. That wouldn't work because I would definitely forget them. And then likewise, everyone else is working on so many different things at the team level that it's very difficult to know what their priorities are. And so that visibility is extremely important. And at the end of the day, Party Matrix is designed to tackle all three of these problems. And the most important thing is that Party Matrix has to work for you as the individual. So I hope that when you get out of today's webinar, you get a sense of how Party Matrix will actually fit into your workflow, how you can adapt it to the way you work, so then you can be on top of your task. My goals, one, to help you understand the basics of Party Matrix. There's just 1,000 things to learn, but we don't have to learn all of those things. We just focus on the most important features. And then hopefully you'll become more effective and efficient at prioritizing your tasks, projects, and emails in particular, help you envision what your work and life success may look like, and then give you a sense of the 20 features in Party Matrix that give you 80% of the benefits. I'll show you more than 20% of those features, of course, but I'm going to highlight the things that are actually most impactful. So hopefully you'll get to use those and you'll see, oh, wait a minute, this can really change my productivity. And then also, I want to give you some tips and tricks. I've talked to thousands of customers over the past decade, so I've seen every possible use case imaginable, and then walk you through a few key features. Party Matrix is a comprehensive email priority and project management software. We have, almost every features that's imaginable with respect to task and project management, but we help at three levels. At the individual level, again, it's about prioritizing your tasks and emails. At the team level, it's making sure that everyone's aligned on what's important. And then lastly, at the organizational level, as you use Party Matrix more and more, it actually becomes a one central place to track all the work that you have. And we actually have really good reporting mechanism and all that to track your work. So what makes Party Matrix better is that it's the only project email and meeting management software that is Microsoft 365 security certified for Teams, Outlook, and web. And so, for your organization, it just shows that Party Matrix is already, meeting the industry standards when it comes to security. And so for your IT department and so forth, approval is also a lot easier. We're probably the most integrated solution inside Teams, Outlook, and Copilot. We're one of the most popular apps in Teams. We're one of the best-selling apps in Teams as well. And then the third thing is that we provide what I call people-centric collaboration. In my opinion, it's not about projects, right? Everyone has projects, and what is a project anyways? It's just a lot of tasks that you really have to do within a subset of context. And so what I really like about Party Matrix is that you can actually flip it around and look at it from a people standpoint. What do I have to do for fill in the blank, right? For my manager, for my colleague, for my client, etc. Party Matrix is also available as a SaaS solution, a HIPAA compliant solution, as well as an Azure Government Cloud solution, and of course, enterprise solution as well. And at the end of the day, it becomes one place where everyone can go to know what needs to be done. And you can imagine how aspiring of a goal that is. Imagine whatever work that is you do today, you probably have 15 different places to go and prioritize tasks, to look at the things you have to work on, to see what your goals are, etc. Instead, can you imagine one place, one place where you can actually see your personal priorities, your team priorities, your organizational goals, and so on. So hopefully I'll give you a picture of how that may work today. And lastly, but probably the most important thing is that it's easy to get started. Honestly, you should be able to get started with Party Matrix right away. And within 30 seconds, you should be able to write down the priorities that you have, right? That's all you need to do. And then as you use the software, you'll learn more. And again, that's today's goal, which is to walk you through those features. Let's talk about the fundamentals behind per matrix. So there's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." And what I really like about this quote is that it really helps us understand that just because something is urgent doesn't mean it requires our attention. As an example, this morning I wake up and I look at my emails, and I just have so many emails that that come in every single day. And I imagine you face the same issues too. But guess what our tendency is? Our tendency is to look at that last email in, right? We don't look at the most important email. Instead, we look at the last email in because it's the latest thing. And we work like that all the time. And it's called LIFO, last in, first out. And so when you're sitting at your office and guess what, your manager or your colleague comes over, knock on your door, walks in and say, "Hey, by the way, could you do XYZ for me?" A lot of time we end up dropping so many of our important work just to get that thing done. And so when you look at the context of this quote, what we really have to think about is we have to think about what's called the Eisenhower Matrix, which is instead of one long list, you put them into 4 buckets. Are they important and urgent? And if so, they're high priority. Are they important but not urgent? If so, they're medium priority. If they're urgent but not important, they're low priority. And then everything else, if you have something that's not important and not urgent, it shouldn't be on your list. Instead, you have the bucket 4 as what's called uncategorized. This is where you put in your task, your list, you first brainstorm, and then you decide where it fits it within the bigger picture. And really, at the end of the day, our software is no more complex than being able to go and take those tasks that you have and put them into these 4 distinct buckets. And you can just imagine sort of like a fractal version of this, which is where you have, all your various tasks and projects and those responsibilities. And then those tasks and projects are also within a cascading level of priorities. And so what I want you to think about just right now, in the back of your mind, think about everything you have to do, right? That long, long list, and simply take them and categorize them into these various buckets. And if you do that exercise in Protomatrix, I think you've already captured 80% of the value, because the hardest thing is choosing where things belong. I think, the challenge for me in particular is I have so many things to do and so many things I want to do. So it is so crucial that I need to look at the bigger picture every single day, every single week, to know that I'm spending my time on the biggest bang for the buck. Where can my effort be best put to use? And I hope you do the same thing. So the 4 quadrants Eisenhower matrix creates alignment because it forces you to prioritize from the beginning. So, we don't want to hit the week. And when you start your week, we don't want to just go and just pick something to do and just work on it as hard as we can. Instead, we start the week by just stepping back a little bit and saying, okay, you know what, which of these things will have the most impact on my goals? And therefore, that's where I'll start. And here's an exercise I want you to do. Once you've taken that long list of tasks that you have and you prioritize them to the 4 buckets, you ask each of your coworkers, your managers, your direct reports, your colleagues to do the same thing. And then you get together and you compare notes. Imagine, half a second where you could go and see your manager's priority list, priority matrix rather. You see their priority matrix and you see the stuff that they have on there and see where your work is on their particular matrix, and then be able to go to your direct reports and see if their matrix is aligned with what you think is important. And then you go to your colleagues, who you might be asking to do, something that's important to you, but from their perspective, they have a bunch of other things that's higher priorities. Well, guess what? Those things aren't going to be done, right? And so success from using Matrix isn't about finding what everyone agrees on. I think those are easy. At most organizations, everyone is, pretty aligned on what are the most critical tasks. But once in a while, you discover a disagreement, and it's bad disagreements on what should be a priority when it isn't. And that's it. When you've done something like that, when you discover that, your manager and you are disagreeing on something, and you discover that your direct reports and you are disagreeing on something, that means you're using Party Matrix correctly. And so I hope you find disagreements. I hope you get into arguments with one another around priorities and have productive conversations around that. So one exercise that I think is very useful is just to go and to review these priorities often, right? And so be able to put it down into something tangible as in Party Matrix, so then everyone else can see your priorities and you can see everyone else's priorities. It will make a huge difference. A couple of tips for your personal success as you get started. If you're a manager, the first thing you should do is create a project for your team staff meetings. And all you're doing there is just write down the team priorities, exactly what I just mentioned previously. When you're in that staff meeting, screen share your priorities on the big screen. You don't want to go ask everybody, hey, by the way, what are you working on? Because why? The first thing that's going to happen is they're just going to tell you the last thing they thought about, the most urgent things, not the most important things. So therefore, by creating the matrix ahead of time and by ensuring that everyone's priorities are properly captured, your conversation should start with the most important task first, not the most urgent first. If you manage multiple sites or locations, just use Party Matrix to create a projects for each of those sites or location. And it's all around context. And so, if you have one manufacturing plant in North Carolina, one manufacturing plant in Texas, those deserve their own priority list, right? You can't go and mix them together. And so that's all it is. It's just different context. And then Party Matrix lets you create these dashboard projects to oversee them all. So it's actually really cool. And then if you have repetitive programs, as an example, let's just say every time you onboard a customer, you have 15 things you have to do for them. And this is part of your customer onboarding checklist. Well, with Party Matrix, you can actually build templates around that. And so whenever you onboard a customer, you just click on that template and Party Matrix will create all those tasks for you along with all the due dates for you. And so it's extremely powerful way to save you time and effort. If you're a business owner, create a project for each of your departments. And then lastly, if you're an individual contributor and your main work is really just focusing on the things you have to do, that's great. You just create a project for your own goals, your own priorities. In fact, one of the things I want to show you today is how to create a project to track your 2025 goals. All of us have a lot of things we want to do next year, I'm sure. But you don't want to wait and, have January come by and then February, March, and all that, and then suddenly you've forgotten all the goals that you were going to do. So I do want to mention to you that the webinars are recorded, and so they're posted on our website at affluence.com/webinars. And so if you go there, there's also other webinars that deep dive into specific topics, such as email management and templates. But let's go to Party Matrix, and let me show you how to put this into practice. All right, here I have my Party Matrix open. Couple things I want to point to you right away. In the front and center is the 4 quadrants, right? And so when you use Party Matrix, everything that you open has this 4 quadrants as the centerpiece of everything that we do. Then the structure of Party Matrix is the following. On the left-hand side, you have your list of projects. So as I mentioned to you earlier, you can think of project as context. So for example, here in my demo account, I have my personal priorities. That's a project. And then I have my team priorities. That's another project. Or I have my goals or whatever it is that I need to do. So when you use Party Matrix, create the project that makes the most sense to you from a context standpoint. But my general recommendation, create a project for your personal priorities, create a project for your team priorities, especially if you're a manager, create a project for each of your core initiative that you have on a quarterly basis or whatever it is. Okay, so here I have that project selected. I have the 4 quadrants. So as an example, let's create a task. Well, one thing I want to do is I want to make sure I follow up with all of you. So I'm going to say follow up with webinar participants. Okay, so that's a very, very simple task. But here's another thing that I can do, which is I use natural language because I want to make sure that I set a due date for this. So I'm going to go ahead and say due tomorrow at 2 p.m. and I press enter. Now, one thing I can do as well is that I can keep on creating tasks. That's actually a huge feature in Matrix because, I personally hate clicking on a button, create the task, click save, then I'll go back to the menu again, create another item and so forth. Instead, in Matrix, you can keep on typing. So you can just create the task, you press enter, you create more tasks. And check this out. Since I said due tomorrow at 2 p.m., and I click on this item, I open what's called the item details. Party Matrix sets the due date for me for tomorrow at 2 p.m. my local time. So when you use Party Matrix and you say due in 2 weeks or due tomorrow at 5 p.m. or due in 2 hours, it'll use your local time to set those due dates for you. And it's just one of those things where it's very minor, but it saves you time and effort. And if you really think about how do you manage tasks that are important and urgent, to know when something is urgent, you have to have a sense of the due date. So, in my opinion, setting due date is a very crucial thing to do, and I want to make that as easy as possible for you. So here, let's take a look at the item details and look at everything around it. First, here's the item name. There's a couple things I can do. I can star it. If I star it, it pops at the top of that list. And then I can also add an icon. And so the icon is just a visualization. One of the things that I really like, or I've seen customers use, is the red, yellow, and green, just as a way to say the status of that particular task. Completely optional. Below that, you have the owner. So who's responsible for this task? When I first create it, it's actually, assigned to me, but I can go ahead and click on it and assign to a coworker. So now Eugenia is responsible for the task. When she goes into this particular project, she'll be able to see that task, that what's assigned to her, and then as those tasks are updated, I get notification because I'm a follower. Then you have effort, progress, and reminder. Well, so what's effort? Effort is how long it takes for you to do that task. If you click on effort, you can choose 1 hour, 2 hours. And what you can also do is you can actually also in the command and say, set effort to 15 minutes. Not all tasks are created equal, right? Some will take you hours, some will take you minutes. Why do you want to track effort? There's one particular reason, which is if you ever have to do billings. So if you need to go and generate a report that says, how many hours did I spend on these particular tasks? Well, Party Matrix actually will give you that report if, or rather let you export that information if you set the effort here. So that's very useful for consultants, lawyers, etc. Progress is 0, 100%. When it's 100%, the task is done. But if you actually make progress on the task, then Party Matrix will track that and tell you where you're spending your time and how you're working on it. Now, there's due dates and reminders. And they're similar, but they're very, very different in terms of usage. Let me give you an example. Let's just say if I need to work on my taxes and it's due April 15th, right? And it's at a due date April 15th. Well, April 15th comes, there's no way I can get all that done on that day. So what I want to do is actually, I want to set the reminder ahead of time. And so that allows me to have that task be top of mind for me. So then what I can do is I go ahead and say, remind me weekly. So what I've just done is while I have a due date for tomorrow at 2 p.m. for this particular task to follow up with the webinar participants, I've also set a weekly reminder to make sure that I get this task done just in case I miss it. And the reality is that I don't know if you've experienced it yourself, but I've seen this personally at least, which is, you have something on your due date. And so as you approach the due date, it's top of mind, right? You're thinking about it. You're like, oh, I got to work on this thing and it's about to be due. And so you're thinking about it. And as you get closer, you're thinking about more. But the moment the due date passes, you stop thinking about it. You start to think about it less. And then as the due date passes more and more, you think about it less and less and less. And then at some point, you're no longer thinking about it. Why? Because you have 1,000 other things you're doing and 1,000 other deadlines coming. And guess what? You might have something that's really important and it's completely overdue and you're completely neglecting it. And we don't want that. So the difference between due dates and reminders is the following. I'll set that due date, but I'll set a recurring reminder so it keeps on popping back to make sure that I remember to work on it until it's done. And so that's a very powerful way to trick our brain. That's a powerful way to ensure that we actually work on those critical tasks. So I strongly recommend that you use the recurring reminder. You can just click on this and choose a recurring reminder, or you can type in the command exactly like I've done. Below that, you have the chat, and this is where you can see that I'm typing some messages and so forth, but it's also served as a place to communicate with my coworkers. So let's just say if I have multiple people working on a task together, you can actually send messages back and forth here to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And it puts everything within context. Instead of sending a text message, instead of sending an emails or a message in Microsoft Teams, you just have one central place to communicate around that task itself. Then in the notes section, you can add subtasks, you can add other notes here. And then finally, in the resources section is where you can have documents, files, and even emails. Now let's speak about emails. One of the main reasons customers come to Party Matrix is email prioritization. And here's scenario, right? What happens is that on a day-to-day basis, you get a lot of emails. And so let me see if I can open up my Outlook right here. On a day-to-day basis, you get a lot of emails, and maybe you get an email that is very important, but you can't respond to it right now because there's a lot of pending work and you have to respond to it within 2 weeks. How do you track that email? How do you do it today? Let me ask you that question. So lots of people go and flag their emails. Lots of people go and put it into various folders. Lots of people go and say, set a reminder on that email or whatever. But the challenge is, how do you ensure that, if you have 50 flag emails, that you remember to actually work on them? So with Party Matrix, we're able to let you turn that email into a task and prioritize it. And here's how it works. Let's just say you get an email and it's, from a customer or from your manager or from your CEO, whatever it is. And you go and you click on the apps and you choose Party Matrix, turn emails into task. And when you do that, you get two options, and you simply choose prioritize email. And what happens is that inside Outlook, Party Matrix opens up this panel that lets you turn this email into a task in Party Matrix. And here's the part that makes it particularly useful. You can choose what project it goes in. So for example, if you get an email from a certain customer, well, they would go in their project. Or if you get an email from for a particular project, you can choose that project and then prioritize the email there. Then you can choose what quadrant. Is it high priority, medium, low, or is it uncategorized? And then lastly, you can even assign this email to another person. So let's just say I get an email and I need a coworker to take a look at it, and I want to make sure that they know it's very important. Guess what I do? I choose quadrant one, assign to the person, and then set a due date for, well, I wouldn't do that for Christmas. So we'll do the 31st there and then click capture email. And so what I've done is I've just taken that email and I've created a task for it. And now you can see it's just the item details, exactly like the item details in Party Matrix. And here's the best part. I can go ahead and set that recurring reminder, and I'll say remind everyone monthly. And now on a monthly basis, there will be a reminder trigger for this particular email to make sure that this email is responded to. My coworker can open this task, go to the resource panel and see exactly the email, open the attachments, and respond to that email as needed. So one of the most powerful thing about Party Matrix is making sure that your most important email are actually prioritized within a project, prioritized within the level of priorities itself, with the proper due dates assigned to the proper person, and there's a recurring reminder to make sure that you respond to that email. And then not only that, what you can do with Party Matrix is you can actually take that email and you can attach to an existing task. So instead of actually creating a new task from another thread that you may have, a follow-up from the customer, you can actually open Party Matrix, choose an existing task, and then hover over that and attach the email to that task. So what that allows you to do is actually organize all the information that you have in one central place. So imagine, if you're working with an enterprise customer and the enterprise customer is just sending you a bunch of emails with a lot of requests, lots of different contexts, right? You can't just go and have it all in your emails as one long list that's unorganized. Instead, you actually move it into Party Matrix, you attach those emails into one central place, and then all your coworkers can be on the exact same page. And inside Party Matrix, you can attach documents, you can attach presentations, you can attach links to SharePoints, and so on. So that's how email prioritization works within Outlook. Now, let's just say we use Gmail or you use something else. Well, we actually also have integrations for that too. So if you have Gmail, you can install Party Matrix for Gmail. And then when you're browsing an email and you need to, again, to prioritize it, you simply click on the Party Matrix for Gmail and we'll to capture that as a task. Not only that, every person in Party Matrix has a unique inbox address. So I'll show you how that works. When you go back to Matrix here, you can click on inbox and you have a secret inbox address. Copy that link right there and then save that as a contact in Matrix. So then what happens is that when you're on the phone, let's say, for me, for example, I'm on the phone and I use Apple Mail on my iPhone instead of Outlook. So when I get an email, I don't have an Outlook app to do that. But what I do is I just forward it into my inbox. So what I do, for example, I just forward, and since I have my inbox contact saved, I just type inbox, and I would say due tomorrow, remind me weekly. And that's it. I click send, and Matrix will create a task for me from that email I forwarded, set a due date, and set me a weekly reminder to answer that email. And that's how we help you overcome email prioritization. And so that's, for all of us, we just get so many emails. Being able to set those recurring reminders and put them into the proper context is extremely powerful. Every project in Matrix also has an email address. So what that means is you can even build complex rules in Matrix that allows you to automatically organize information sent from various entities. So for example, all the emails I get from Microsoft is automatically sent to my Matrix Microsoft project. So that's a very powerful way for me to ensure that I have captured all the information that I need. So now let's go back to Outlook real quick, and I'm going to show you something else. With Matrix, you can also install Matrix in Outlook directly too. So what that means is I can actually go to more apps here, put Matrix here, and I can access the entire Matrix application inside Outlook without even leaving it. And the whole idea there is to reduce context switching. I imagine you probably have so many windows, so many tabs open, so many applications in so many different places, right? And the one thing I hate the most is having to switch between all these views to find the information that I need. So instead, we've built Matrix to be wherever it is that you want to be. So in particular, if you're in Teams and if you're in Outlook, you can access the entire Matrix here without even leaving the application. So you can actually switch between emails, calendars, and then Matrix directly. Inside Microsoft Teams, it's the exact same thing. You can access the entire Matrix here, and I don't even have to leave Microsoft Teams. We also have native desktop application. And so what allows you to do is actually you can install the Mac app and the Windows app, and then Matrix will send you notifications directly through those apps. So if you're really, really going to invest a lot of time and effort into Matrix, make sure you download our desktop app. So now let's go back to Matrix for a second and let's talk about projects. So I've shown you how to create a task. I've shown you how to add information. But one of the most important thing about Matrix is, again, creating these projects that organize all the information that we have. So to create a project is very simple. Click on create project. And then you have a couple of options. The first is a blank project. This is very straightforward, right? This has nothing else in it. And so, all you do is you say the project name. So for example, here's one thing I recommend to you to do. Goals for 2025. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project for goals for 2025. I'm going to go ahead and choose a color and I'll add the project. So now I have my list of goals for 2025. But there's a couple things I'm going to do. When I first create that project, I can click on this project details and it opens the project details on the right-hand side. I can do a couple things. One, I can invite other people to this project. So my first project is personal, but then I can create different projects and invite, my manager, I can invite my colleagues, I can invite my direct reports, etc. Right? So if you're creating a team project, you might invite everybody, or you have a personal project that you don't invite anybody. But I can do a couple of things. I can customize this project name. So long-term goals. So I'll go do long-term goals, medium-term goals, and then I'm going to change this quadrant 3 to anti-goals. Okay, and so now I've customized my quadrant names into something that's different from the Eisenhower Matrix. Now that's the beauty of Matrix, which is the Eisenhower Matrix is just a suggestion. But at the end of the day, you can think of the quadrants as 4 distinct buckets that you can organize your information. And the buckets helps us sort of, instead of having one long list, it helps us put it into distinct categories so then we can actually look at it and perceive it and have a bigger picture. And the reason why it's also helpful is because I can actually just shift the matrix so I can focus on one quadrant at a time. So keep that in mind. But let's just say one of the goals I have is read a business book. Okay, and so that's something that maybe every month. That's something I want to do as a goal. Now, just like I mentioned to you earlier, if you just set a goal, I'll think about it maybe in January, but if I don't do anything else, I'm going to forget about it because I have so many other things that's going on. So one trick that I want to mention to you is using that reminder system. And down here, I'm going to go ahead and say, remind me monthly. So now I recommend that you do the same thing. Create a project for your goals for next year, create your tasks for those various goals, and then go ahead and set that recurring reminder so it's top of mind for you. And that's all you got to do. And that will help you fulfill your goals for next year. Now, also the 4 quadrants is one view in Matrix, but there's a couple of other things you can do that's really useful. So for example, I'm going to go ahead to go to a different project here. And in this project, I have a lot of different tasks. And as you can see, the quadrant names are different. Here, I can actually switch views to the list view. And here I get to see all the tasks I have in this particular project. Now, one thing that's really useful is the following. Imagine if your customer asks you, hey, by the way, what are you working on for me? Right? I'm sure you've received that question before. Well, guess what you can do? When you go to the list view, you can select this multi-selection, choose select all, and you generate an email report. And Matrix will actually generate this email report for you directly from the task that you've selected. This is very powerful because you can go and generate that and send it to somebody immediately, directly from that project. And so we actually just use Outlook. We generate all these information for you. And if there are tasks that are done or partially done, the completion percentage will change. But now imagine if you want to go and take it further and say, what are all the things that's been completed, right? You go and change the states, and now I can actually build a filter. And now I can see all the tasks that are completed. And I go back to here, and I'll go ahead and clear my selection. And then again, I can select the task I want and then build a new email report. And so now I can actually generate an email report for all the tasks that I finished for the customer. So you can imagine the scenario that you can play out where when you're creating tasks in Matrix lets you go and build email reports from that extremely easily. And what I can do further is actually I can go to what's called the Kanban view. The Kanban view actually helps me see the status and progress of every single one of my projects. So the 4 quadrants is good for seeing priorities. The list is very good for seeing tasks that are overdue. But the Kanban lets you see what are the things that are left to do, the things that are in progress, and the things that are done. So I'll show you how that works. So let's just say if I have this task, which is now to do, and now I've made a little bit of progress, and you see how as I update the progress, it moves into the in progress section. And then I have another task here where actually I finish. And so when I click on finish here, you see how it moves over to the finish section. So when you create a project in Matrix, and if your project has a start date and an end date, and your goal is to get all the tasks from the to-do side over to the done side, the Kanban view here gives you a very, very good perspective. And so it just lets you see what is left to do, and it's very easy to spot that. Matrix also give you the calendar view, and so every task you have with the due dates will show up in the calendar view here. Again, it lets you see everything that you have to do this week and this month. But then sometimes you have things that actually spans much longer term horizon, and that's what the timeline and Gantt chart is for. So when you click on the Gantt chart here, Matrix actually will build you a Gantt chart across months and even years. And so I can keep on zooming out, and I can see tasks that are for this year, but next year, but also through 2027, 2028, and so forth. And Matrix automatically generate this for you. In fact, you can take a CSV file and create a Gantt chart in Matrix within just 30 seconds. So Matrix lets you take any information that you have in an Excel document and convert that into tasks, and then from there, be able to build reports and as well as Gantt charts, etc., in no time at all. And so these are the other views you have in Matrix. And again, one of the things I want to mention to you is how you can be in any views, do the multi-selection, select those tasks, and then you can actually bulk edit them. You can mark them as, you can change the owner, you can change the icon, you can change the due date, and so forth. Now, let's just say if you work on a lot of projects and you need to know what do I need to work on across all of these projects. Well, Matrix actually gives you several perspectives. These are called global views. So I showed you the calendar view, but I can show you now the global calendar view. When I go to the global calendar view, it shows everything across all of my Matrix in one central place. But let's just say if I need to select only specific projects, I can click on project and just select the project that I care about. Then I can actually even filter it and I can say, wait a minute, show me the task assigned to my direct report, right? Or to this other person. And then I can actually see their workload across all of Matrix from one central place and what their calendar is like for the next months or years or whatever it is. The same thing happens with the Gantt chart view. I can go to the Gantt chart view here, which shows me all the tasks that you have across all of Matrix. And then I can click on these various filters here to filter the information that I need so that I can build Gantt charts for any project that I want, for any assigned to any specific people. And then I can actually print it or download the Gantt chart as an SVG file that I can put in my presentation. Now, earlier, one of the things I mentioned to you is how Matrix can help you deal with one-on-one meetings or people-centric view. Well, there's something called the one-on-one, and if you choose the one-on-one, you can select a coworker. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're a manager and you have 5 direct reports and you have a one-on-one meeting. A natural question is, hey, what are you working on? What's blocking you, right? What's overdue? Where are your priorities? And so if you've had one-on-ones before, obviously there's a lot of things you can talk about, but being able to find the information that you need quickly is so useful. And the last thing you want to do is you have to open Matrix and go through every single project. Well, we solved that by actually creating this one-on-one view, and you simply select the person and Matrix will show you all the tasks you have across all of Matrix in one central place. So if you and your direct reports are working across 5 different projects, that information all shows up in here. And then not only that, I can actually click on filter here and I can group by project. So I can see exactly the tasks that they're working on in every single project. And I can sort by due dates. I can sort by when they're modified. And then as I'm having that one-on-one meeting, I can actually create shared tasks directly from here. So this saves me a lot of time because I don't have to go to a project to create a task. And whenever I create a task in the one-on-one view, it automatically assigns to my coworker, automatically add me as a follower. So then I'll get updates and notifications when those tasks are finished or changed. And then not only that, let's just say, you have a conversation with your employee, your coworker, and realize, wait a minute, they're overwhelmed and you need to reassign tasks. Check this out. I can go to here again. I can select specific items. I was like, you know what? Let me reassign these tasks to another person. And it's to select those tasks, and I can go and change owner and assign to somebody else. And just like that, I can actually make changes across all of my projects for somebody. Let's just say they're going to be on vacation and someone needs to take over those tasks. And so Matrix makes that all possible for you in a very, very seamless manner. One of the things you're able to do with Matrix as well is you're able to export these tasks as CSV. And so this is actually a really neat feature. So if you go back to Matrix, let's just say, again, you have a series of tasks that you have here. You can go to the project details and you can export the entire project as a CSV file. And then afterwards, you can actually import that back into Matrix, or you can create a brand new project from that CSV. And when you export it as CSV, Matrix will actually print out all those effort hours that I mentioned to you, right? So if you have a lot of tasks and you're spending half an hour here, an hour here, and you need just to sum it all up, well, that CSV file will give you that. And not only that, it'll give you the owner as well. So the owner of each task. So you can see exactly what each person is working on and how many hours they spent on those tasks. Now that I'm inside Microsoft Teams, I want to show you a couple of Teams integrations that makes Matrix very unique. So here I can click on a chat with anybody, and actually what I can do is I can actually put the one-on-one view with all of my coworkers. So if you use Microsoft Teams, this is almost a no-brainer. Just go to click on plus here, select Matrix, and then select the one-on-one. And once you do that, you can select your teammate. And now when you're inside Matrix, you can actually create a one-on-one for every single one of every person that you work with, and you get to see the entire one-on-one directly inside Teams. Also, when you're in Teams, you can actually click on any conversation that you have with your coworker and create a task directly from Microsoft Teams. Again, you don't have to go to Matrix, you don't have to select a project, you don't have to create a task. After all that, you just directly click on any conversation and create a task. And one of the things that you can do in Matrix as well is actually you can send these tasks to your coworkers. So what happens is that you can actually go and click on Matrix and send these action cards. The reason you do that is sometimes you actually need just to raise awareness of a task, right? So, let's say I assign a coworker a task, but I don't hear from them. I didn't see them updated. Then I would go back to Microsoft Teams and I'll send them a message and say, hey, by the way, I assigned you this task, but I didn't see you respond. And so that allows you to do that. Now let's go back to Matrix and talk about how do you know what to work on. So in Matrix, there's something called the home view. So for the vast majority of us, this is where we start our day. So for me, this is where I start my day in my Matrix account. And the home views tells me what are the things that are assigned to me, what are the things that are overdue, what are the things that requires my attention. Now, a couple things happens. When you are assigned a task in Matrix, it'll show up. Let's just say, a coworker assigned you a task. It'll show up here in the alerts and it'll say assign. And so it stands out and you'll know that someone assigned you a task. But one of the things that happens too is that you can mention somebody. So as an example, I can click on mention a collaborator, right? And say, can you take a look at this? And then what happens is that Matrix will actually push this notification to the very top of their list. So when you are working with a lot of other people and you really need to get someone's attention, that's what you do. You mention them as a collaborator. And so when they need your attention, they'll mention you as a collaborator, and that goes to the top of your alerts. And then you can assign tasks. And then here you get to also see what are all the other things that you should be spending your time and effort on. One of the things I like to do is actually I like to go and clear my old notifications, right? Not all notifications require your attention. As you can see, there's many different categories here, but this is something that you can do. And when you start your day, that's where you go. But when you look at this view, it actually also has a link to the agenda view. If you click on agenda, Matrix will tell you everything you need to work on across all of your Matrix. And then not only that, it actually organizes the information. So what are the things that you have to do today? What are the things you have to do tomorrow? What are the things you have to do this coming week? And then also, if you scroll down, what are the things that are overdue? So if you're an individual contributor, the agenda view is very helpful to you because it just tells you what you need to work on. Your manager, your colleagues, all these people might assign you a bunch of different tasks. All you have to do is go to the agenda view. And so if you are focused on just doing specific things, that's where you go. If you are someone who assign a lot of tasks, the one-on-one view is very useful, right? And then if you just need to know what's the status of everything, then you can go to what's called the My Items view, or you can go to the Search view, which is the master view that shows everything across all of Matrix. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you is that don't be afraid of creating projects in Matrix. And the reason I say that is because projects helps us stay organized, but Matrix can actually help you roll that information up. So let's just say if you're in sales and you happen to have a project in Matrix for every single one of the major clients that you work with. That's a very straightforward scenario. You can imagine the same scenario for your use case, right? Is there something that you manage that requires you to have a lot of projects in Matrix? Well, check this out. I can right click on a project and copy link, and then I can actually create a project of projects. So when I create a project here, I can actually click on add item, and instead of creating a task name, I paste that link and I press enter. And Matrix will automatically inherit that information from that project and shows it to you right here inside that project. So I recommend your executives to create a project just like this. And so the executive member can go in one project in Matrix and see exactly the status of all the projects that he or she is responsible for. And so it automatically inherits all the number of tasks in each quadrant. And then the number 11 here, that represents the number of tasks that are overdue. And then if I need to drill down, I just click on this icon right here, and it takes me to the project itself and gives me all the information that I need. So it's a very powerful way to document, lots of projects and ensure that all the projects themselves are on time. And one of the things I like to do too is actually you go to here and you can actually change the icon, right? And so we mentioned earlier how you can use red, yellow, and green. Well, guess what? If a project's behind schedule, change it to yellow. And if it's really behind schedule, change it to red. And then if it's on schedule, change it to green, right? And so now, again, as an executive, you can actually have a really good perspective of everything that's going on across all of Matrix. Now I'm going to show you one last thing, which is our Chrome and Edge extension, which I think is actually pretty useful. So earlier I showed you how you can actually take any email in Outlook and create a task from that. Well, you can actually install our Chrome and Edge extension that allows you to create a task from any web page you're browsing. So let's go back to that example in Outlook. So let's just say, I get an email in Outlook and I don't need to convert this whole email into a task. Maybe there's like one line of text that I need to create a task from. I simply select that line, right click, and choose Save Selection to Matrix, and this will automatically create a task for me. So fast, so easy. I don't have to open anything. I just select that text and right click and save it. I can also click on the extension right here and create the task if I need to have more control, if I need to say what project it goes in, or I need to assign to another person. The reason why this is helpful is if you use SharePoint or you've used Dropbox or Box or some file sharing service and you want to assign someone a document, guess what? You just go to that document, click on the Matrix extension and assign to them that task from there. And then Matrix will create a link back to that document. And then they can open that in Matrix and see exactly what they need to work on. Okay, with that, I'm going to go back to my presentation and I'm going to try to wrap this up for you. What to do now? So as you can see, I showed you quite a number of features in Matrix. At the end of the day, though, you don't have to use all of them. What are the things you should do? You should, one, sign up for Matrix and use our apps in Teams and Outlook if applicable. The reason is Matrix integrates so well in Teams and Outlook that it almost, it makes so much sense for you to be able to prioritize your email and be able to access Matrix in Teams and Outlook without having to open our application. But I do strongly recommend downloading our desktop apps. So if you go to affluence.com/downloads, you can install Matrix for Mac, Matrix for Windows, and now Matrix can be pinned on your desktop, and then you'll get notifications whenever things are overdue or people assign you tasks and so forth. And then create a project that highlight your top priorities. I mean, I think that's the number one thing and probably the number one reason why you're here today, which is you're just trying to track your task. So create a project for your personal task, create a project for your 2025 goals, and create a project for your team goals. And then that's a fantastic place to start. When you create tasks, set those due dates and reminders. You don't have to go and create dependencies. You don't have to create subtasks. You don't have to add icons or anything. Just set due dates and reminders so then it'll send you those alerts so then you know what you need to work on. And then ask each of your coworkers to do the same thing. Having your coworkers also create their priorities and then be able to go and just compare notes is so powerful. One recommendation I have is spend 1 hour each week in Matrix. Some people actually have Matrix on their second screen. Like I do. I have Matrix visible almost all the time. But other people, you can just spend 1 hour a week updating your Matrix to make sure that you're spending time on the right things. And so then being able to work on the right things and spending all your time and effort on that is so much more powerful than spending all your time doing the wrong things. And so hopefully you take this into build this mindset as you think about how to best use Matrix. And then, of course, every single week, compare notes with your coworkers. I think constant communication and constantly ensuring that everyone is aware of the priorities is so powerful. And the other thing is, you don't have to have a meeting, right? You can actually just go and open the Share Matrix projects and be able to see what the priorities are. And so this actually really helps where organizations are now so much more distributed. So if you are working remotely or if you have teams across different cities and different countries, you don't have time to have a meeting and just to get alignments. Instead, you can open up the Share Matrix and see everyone's priorities in real time, asynchronously. What success with Matrix should look like? On a personal level, you should check Matrix every week and you have one central place to track all your priorities. So you know exactly what you need to work on and then you're constantly reprioritizing. At the team level, everyone understands and are aligned on key tasks. So everyone should have access to that team priority project. They can open that, see what everyone's priorities are, and be able to understand where they need to spend their time. If you have important emails, you prioritize them. And then you can also delegate those emails to the appropriate team members and then setting those due dates to make sure they're not forgotten. And then lastly, be able to see everyone's priorities in real time asynchronously. Again, you don't have to have a meeting. Instead, Party Matrix gives you that structured, tangible view of what everyone's priorities are without having to be in the same place. All right, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have. I'll go ahead and check the Teams chat. And then if you have other questions that didn't get answered today, or if you want to ask privately, just send me an email, hi@affluence.com. I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Thank you. Okay, I have a question here. Can you go over inserting individual project in a master project list? Yeah, I can show you that again. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Party Matrix here. And then here, I'm going to go open my Party Matrix. So the way it works is the following. Every project in Party Matrix has a link. And also, all you have to do is right-click on the project, copy link to the project, and then you go and you create a task and you paste that link and you press enter. And that's pretty much it. So you can see how the moment I did that, Party Matrix automatically grabs that information from that project and pastes it right here. But here's something else you can do. You can actually create a task. And then when you do that, you can actually select that task. And in the project details, in the task details, you click on it and you can see convert to project. So what happens is that you can actually take any task. So let's just say you're in a high level meeting, you create a bunch of tasks in Party Matrix, and now each of those tasks themselves is a project, right? You just click convert to project, and then Party Matrix will actually create a project for you. But here's the cool part. If you type in the information for the task, so for example, I'll show you this here, generate marketing plan for 2025. Now check this out. I can actually click on this task. I can go to here, convert to project, and I can use our AI system to actually create a project along with all the tasks for me. So it's a really cool feature. And so Party Matrix will generate some ideas for you on those particular tasks. Okay, the next question is, how do you rename the projects? Well, it's very easy to rename a project. Now that you see this project was just generated for me. To rename a project, you go select the project. If you go click on this thing, it's called edit project, and it opens the project details. You just click on here and change it. So you see that? So you just click on that to change the project. And in fact, you can even star project here. And if you star a project, it actually goes to the top of the list. And then if you right click and you pin the project, then it goes to the top of your list. So if you star something, it goes to the top of everyone's list. But if you pin it, it goes to the top of your list. So that's the highest priority. Do we integrate with Power Automate? Yes, we do. Actually, Party Matrix integrates with Power Automate, integrate with Teams Workflow, integrate with Microsoft Copilot. We're one of the very first Teams applications that integrate with Copilot. So to use our Power Automate, there's a couple of things. You just go search for Party Matrix Power Automate, but we also actually have an example here to show you. So here, I have an example. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the chat. But here is how you can use Microsoft Power Automate in Party Matrix to automatically create tasks when you have a calendar meeting. So let's just say every time you have a meeting with a customer, you want to make sure that you create a task 2 days prior, right? To make sure that you reach out to them, and then automatically create a task the day after to make sure that you follow up with them. And so by using Power Automate, Party Matrix can actually build that entire process for you. So this is an example of Power Automate. And so you can actually just set that up and you can do whatever other setup that you want with Power Automate. Power Automate does require you to have a Microsoft Power Automate license. But once you have that Power Automate license, you can use that and work with Party Matrix. The other thing you can do is actually we have built-in Power Automate integrations inside Microsoft called workflows. So if you go to here and you click on workflows, and you search for Party Matrix, you can actually see that we've built some workflows for you already. And so, for example, if an important task is deleted, notify someone, or if a Microsoft form is submitted, automatically create a task in Party Matrix. So an example, let's just say if you build a survey and you send that survey out and you just want to know that every time a survey is submitted, create a task in Party Matrix to review. That's an example of a workflow. And so when you go to Microsoft Teams, you see these formulas already built for you. But with Power Automate, anything's open. And then not only that, for our business and enterprise customers, we actually help you build those Power Automate to actually make it work with the way you work. So it's actually really neat. And by the way, when you install Matrix, you can see that we have several versions, but with Matrix right here, you can see our icons, which is our Microsoft certification icon, and then also our Copilot icon. So this particular version right here is one that actually works with Copilot. And the way it works with Copilot is that you can actually chat with a chat bot to find out what you have to do. And so with Matrix, it's the same thing. You can go to the Matrix chat bot right here, and this is the one that sends you all those information around what are the things do I need to work on. But you can also just say, what do I need to work on this week? And Matrix will actually use natural language to find that information for you. Thank you for those questions. Are there any other questions? As I mentioned to you, this webinar and other webinars are recorded, and so they're posted on our website right there, affluence.com/webinars. And then if you have any questions, and especially if you're looking at deploying Matrix at your organization or at your company, feel free to reach out to me at hi@affluence.com. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.